Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Luna Unscripted, where we talk about real life, real career paths, clinical insights, and just share the nitty-gritty details of life as a PT. I'm Katie Wiley, one of your hosts.
And I'm Joe Valdez.
I'm Marcy Arena.
And today we're joined by one of our wonderful colleagues. Katlyn, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background as a PT.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you guys today, and thanks for having me. Like Katie said, my name's Katlyn. I am based out of Kansas. I've been a PT since 2019. My main background is in orthopedic and sports, but I've worked in a couple different settings. I started out in a hospital-based setting in their outpatient wing right out of school for about 2 years. After that, I transitioned into a standalone outpatient clinic. And then following that, I opened up my own business, which is kind of what we're here to talk about today.
Okay, that's kind of the theme of today. We thought all the PTs out there would love to know from a person who's actually done it what it's like to start your own business, all of the logistics that go into that, the pros and the cons. And we'll also get into the tax side of things, because I know for someone like myself, I don't know a ton about taxes. So I'd love to hear more about that, more of the little details. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your business, what led you to that, and all those details. And I'm sure Marcy and Joe will have some good questions for you along the way too.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, like I said, after 2019, when I graduated, I went into a outpatient wing of a hospital, which it was a really good job. I had great coworkers. There wasn't crazy productivity standards. There was no double booking, anything like that, but it wasn't necessarily the patient population that I just had seen myself treating coming out of school in my background. And so, following that, I went into a traditional outpatient setting where I did get to see more of those orthopedic, sports, high school athletes, that type of thing. But I quickly realized that there was a high burnout rate where I was at. And, we would see 2 to 3 patients at a time. It was just not the way that I envisioned PT being done when I was in school, and
It's
having that one-on-one
exhausting,
care
isn't
with
it?
those
Being in those
patients.
clinic settings, like it's
Yes.
just with the high volume. And I agree. I love seeing that athletic population. I was in a very similar environment, and it really gets you, like it weighs on you, just like all of the juggling and then the documentation afterward. It's just so much.
Oh, 100%. And I think the thing too was like sometimes maybe if you had similar patients where it was two high school athletes or they had similar diagnoses, but it's like if you have a Parkinson's patient, a total knee, and then a high school ACL kid all at the same time, it's like where's that? Somebody's missing out on the care because you can't just jump back and forth. So at the time I was at that job, I was working out at a gym down the street from my house. And it's just a big warehouse gym. The guy that owns it was super cool. And I'd gotten to know him over a year or so. And he said, I know you've told me like you've had this thought about opening up a PT clinic. And our massage therapist that rents out this space in the gym is actually leaving. And so that's opening up. And I'd love for you to come in and do that. And so what I thought might be like a 5-year plan in my brain turned into like, okay, we're doing this in like 3 months. And so things got kind of kicked up and yeah, talked to like my husband about it. We were kid free at the time. So, we were like, it's something that I had always kind of dreamed of. I had some good connections in the area and people that worked out at that gym, a lot of high school, college athletes, that type of thing. And so started in right then and there, started looking at the space, renovating the space to what I needed, getting equipment, everything like that, and jumped on the opportunity.
That's amazing.
Wow,
Now,
happened really quick, Katlyn.
Yeah.
quick. Now, in your area, are there a lot of like big health systems or colleges like around? Like, I feel like in Columbus, that's always intimidated me of like opening my own practice because there's Ohio State and we have all these other health systems. I'm like, how would I keep up? I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm in Andover, Kansas, which is really just a suburb of Wichita, Kansas. And so we have Wichita State. We have a lot of junior colleges around. I actually had a partnership with one of the community colleges that's about 20 minutes away. I'd go out there twice a day, work with all of their athletes year round and see them in the summer times too. So having those colleges actually was pretty neat because I got to work with those athletes, make really good personal relationships with the surgeons and the PAs. And that's another thing too, when you're in a traditional setting, you can't always just pick up your cell phone and literally call the personal number of the PA or ortho surgeon. But when you're on your own and you have that private clinic and you make those relationships, that's a huge thing to just be able to call and be like, hey, so and so's ACL incision is looking a little infected. Could we get them in today? And text back and forth with them. So that was something that over time I really enjoyed as well, just having those relationships. There are some big hospital systems here, but I just felt like the setting of having like 10,000 square feet of like turf, equipment, sports, like that just wasn't around here. And going into that, it was already set up for the most part, right? Because that gym was already there. So just setting up my own personal space and then getting to use all of their space was something that was really beneficial because it just wasn't, there wasn't a ton of that around the area.
So it seems like you had a pretty good setup already. Like, you mentioned that your 5-year plan turned into a 3-month plan,
Yeah.
but you had like these colleges, you had that relationship. I'm curious on, the research that went behind that 3 months of like having to, because this is your first time opening a business, right? So
Yeah,
what kind
yeah.
of research, what kind of things did you look into to get that ready in 3 months?
Yeah, well, obviously the first thing was like, okay, we need an LLC. So went in, filed for the LLC. That's something that's pretty simple. I think some people think it's like this big long process. It only costs like about $150. Filed it, got that set up, got the name approved for the business. I went in. I did meet with a couple different banks and I had to give presentations on what was expected, the, income that was expected within the first 12 to 24 months and get like a small business loan, which I didn't need much. I just needed a bit of equipment because like I said, they had a lot of equipment there. So I did that. I went around and started marketing right away. What was great is the owner of the gym already had some clients that he was like, "Hey, Katlyn's coming in here in September. Let's get you in to see her." The boxing instructor at the gym actually was in medical sales for orthopedic supplies. And so he was like, hey, I got you too. And it just, that helped a ton. But I had already over, the course of months formulated like a business plan because I knew that someday I wanted to do it. So I had these ideas in my
That's
head
what
and
I
I
was
just,
going to ask.
throw them
Did
into
you
like a
partner
Google
with
Doc.
anybody in like the business world to like make that happen, or is this just
Yeah.
independent like research and you kind of creating that plan?
Well, another another thing that just, fell into my lap was the fact that my neighbor actually was a small business financial advisor. And
Oh,
so
perfect.
shout
Lucky,
out
yeah.
to Robbie. He's awesome. And I had actually already given him and his family like advice because he had 4 kids that played sports. Like we'd talk in the driveways about if they got injured, things like that. So he actually would just meet up for lunch with me and kind of help walk me through some of the processes of things. And as you guys know, my husband's also in a CPA, so he was like, I can help with all the tax stuff. That's no problem. So I was very fortunate in the fact that some of those things were easy to come by and the help was easy to come by for sure.
That's awesome, Caitlin. I mean, you mentioned like the LLC costs. Just to kind of
Yeah.
get a rough estimate for anyone who might be interested in doing this as well. Like, what would you say would be the bare minimum for like startup costs and like a checklist of what is absolutely necessary to be able to launch their own practice?
Yeah, when it comes to like a checklist. The reason I did the LLC, and of course, like working for Luna, we have PTs who just do the 1099, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. The reason I did it was for the future of possibly having an S corp down the road, but really for the division between my own finances and the business finances as well. So that was the big thing, was like separating what my husband and I have to what the business was. But yeah, like I said, it's maybe $150 for the LLC, and then you had to do the state filing, which I believe was only $65. Which I still do every year because I still have my LLC and see patients. And so that's only like a $65 payment every year that I have to do into the state of Kansas. Um, but really, I mean, it's again, I met with the banks. I got a small business loan. It wasn't for much money, at all, so that was easy to pay back. But I think that, you just file for that LLC, make sure that you have all of your tax documents in line, and then make sure you're filing through the state. The other thing that some towns or cities require is that you have to license through the city to have a business. So I did join the Andover business community, and that was just a small payment per year that I did as well. But it also got me in with other entrepreneurs in the area where they have monthly meetings, monthly coffees, things like that. But it's every city's different. But again, that's just like a small, $50 to $100 fee to join that and have the rights to own a business within the city limits.
So you're saying that, really with like $500,
Oh
you could
yeah,
start your own
yeah,
business or less even, right?
yeah.
Take into account, you might have to get equipment and whatnot, but at a minimum, it's pretty affordable.
Yeah, and I think some people think that like, oh, I need to like hire a lawyer to get an LLC or file my paperwork for me, that type of thing. You really don't. It's pretty straightforward. You just go on to, your state websites and you can file for those LLCs. And if you want to have somebody read over it, you absolutely could, but it's not doing that would up the cost. And so yeah, I'd say $500 or less. You get that LLC started and going.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Okay, I have a couple of things. First off, I love that
Yeah.
idea of meeting with other small business owners. I feel like locally in our community, at least in the Columbus area, there are so many small businesses that like collaborate and host events, kind of promoting each other. So I think that idea is just
Yeah.
awesome. A great way to market. Stupid question
Yeah, and
though.
what
That's
was
why I was like
cool.
raising my hand earlier. What is an S corp?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
So an S corp it's still a type of just an entity. So it's still a business entity. And the reason that you have those is you have greater tax benefits when you're an S corp, but
Okay.
it's only greater tax benefits if you are making anywhere from 60 to 80 plus K a year.
Got it.
So for some of like Luna's 1099 employees, if they want to get an LLC and they're just doing supplemental, maybe making 10 to 15K a year extra, an S corp wouldn't really be something that they would look into. But that S corp, if we have like, full caseloads like our elite PTs with Luna, they could look into getting that S corp, and that self-employment tax will be less with an S corp, and there's also more tax deductions with an S corp.
Good to know. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
How did you, so you went to the bank and even though you only needed a small loan,
Yeah.
so say people need any, they still, did you know ahead of time you had to kind of give a presentation and they asked for, you knew that they would ask for certain things? How did you estimate, like, did you come up with what reimbursement ideas, either from insurance or cash-based amounts that you
Yes.
want? Okay.
Yeah, so again, I kind of knew what to expect. My entire life, my dad was the president of a bank in our town, and so again, it's just like the benefits I had of
Stars
just people
aligned.
around me helping me. I was like, thank God, because without them, I would have had, maybe more questions. But my dad kind of let me know, like, hey, this is what to expect. I met with some other people in banking that were like, yeah, you'll just expect to come in, have kind of a portfolio, like a business portfolio of a business plan, what to expect, what rates do you expect to get. My clinic was cash based only. So I had like these packages and my set eval rates and treatment rates. And so based off of that, I just said how many patients I expected to see and gradually build up to by that 1 year mark. And when I could, really turn a profit, a big profit. The only insurance that I did take was the accident insurance from the college that I had a partnership with. So some of their athletes did not have insurance, especially out of country, out of state athletes. And so the college's accident insurance was easy to work with and reimbursement wise. So that was the only insurance that I accepted for that.
So if somebody were starting a business maybe and they didn't have like your awesome connections, I feel like there's a lot of great things like online resources for
Oh,
people to read
yes.
up on, some of the tools with that. And probably again, just kind of setting up a meeting with a local bank, collaboration, kind of know what their expectations are going in. That's
Yeah,
probably
I think
a really
too,
good thoughts.
I even looked up like best formulation of like a business plan. I looked that up online and I was like, are there templates I can follow or different things to look at? So I did follow some templates online of just traditional business plans and what to expect and looked for. So definitely a lot out there for supplies and research on business plans and things like that.
Do you ever follow the Uncaged Clinician? It's like a Facebook group.
Yes.
They're really
Yes, I'm
good.
on that Facebook group, and that
Yeah.
is I was a part of that well before I started opening up my business, and they were awesome too, talking about like meeting with other entrepreneurs, those different online groups, like to throw questions in there. I literally threw questions in there while I was in the process of opening up because people in there are so helpful. They're all fellow PTs or business owners that are either want to become uncaged or are have been in the past, and so a couple of those groups were really helpful.
Yeah, they're great. I've been a long time lurker. I think I've thrown a couple random questions in there, but they're
Yeah.
super helpful.
Well,
Did
I've
you
even
say
so like
lurker?
lurker.
Long time lurker.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
I
Sorry, go
still
ahead.
use it. Like putting some of my athletes I would work with, they'd go home in the summer. So they'd be from like California, Florida. I mean, literally all over the place. I'd go into Uncaged Clinician and say like, "Hey, are there any sports-based PTs in this area that can see one of my athletes for the summer?" And every time there'd be like 20 of them that would just pop up. And so super awesome to have those connections.
That's so
Right.
smart. I love it. So, what do you think are anything like the most surprising things, hardest things, best things? I'd also love to hear what informed the insurance versus no decision. Because I know it can be a bit of a headache, but obviously opens up your door to more clientele if you accept insurance, all those
Yeah.
fun little tidbits.
The reason that I went no insurance was just being in the setting that I was before I opened up my clinic. I realized I didn't want any insurance regulations holding me back of how I thought a patient should be treated. So, if I thought that I needed to dry needle them or I needed to do agility training with them or different things, I didn't want insurance to say, no, we're not going to reimburse you for that because we don't think that's necessary when they don't have the education that we all have, right? So, that it was a gamble because like you said, I had starting off, I had so many calls and they'd be like, and what insurances do you accept? And then you have to come up with that pitch of why you don't accept insurances, how sometimes cash pay can be cheaper than insurance
For
pay if you
sure.
haven't met your deductibles, and how I would supply super bills to my patients that they could then submit to their insurance for reimbursement.
Oh, good
So
idea. I
that
hadn't
was a
thought
big,
about that. That's
yeah,
super smart.
yeah. And that was something that helped along the way too. And every insurance is different. Not all of them would accept those super bills, but a lot of the time they could at least get it put towards their deductible, right? So that helped as well. When it comes to the most surprising part, I honestly, I mean, it's gonna sound dorky. I think like the relationships that I've made, like I've worked with some of these kids now for almost 4 years, and some of them were like, 12 years old when I started working with them, and now they're 16+ year old kids. And to see them grow up in their athletics, like one of my soccer kids just signed with a really good Division 1 soccer team, and he's grown like 7 inches since I started working on him. And to see him as like what I would say as a little kid to now like an almost senior in high school, like those relationships that I get to have with those families are part of the reason I wanted to go into PT in the first place, was those one-on-one relationships and building those rapport with the patients and seeing them getting back to what they enjoy and having a passion about it.
Well, and think
That's
about
awesome.
it.
You
You
got a free
wouldn't be
spokesperson.
able to have any of those relationships with the normal like insurance world either, right? Like there's no way you see
No.
somebody consistently for 4 years.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like I'd have a kid coming in for like let's say a baseball kid with shoulder pain, and then he comes in the next week and he's like, "Ah, Caitlin, my knee's killing me." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's work on your knee. I don't need another referral to work on your knee. I don't need insurance approval to work on your knee. You have a game tomorrow and we need to work on your knee." And so it's something that I wouldn't have to have that red tape with. And so the population that I was working with, that was just a really key thing to have is none of those extra steps to take.
So how did you plan for taxes and all that stuff? Yeah, calculating that. I mean, probably
Yeah.
use your husband a lot, I'm sure, but
Yes.
walk us through that process.
Yeah, so I think the big thing to do if you do choose to open up your own business, have your own LLC, things like that, is having your own separate bank account for the LLC. So having that was nice because it really separates like your personal from business finances. And so what I did is you have to know that, self-employment tax is higher. So you have to hold certain things back. But the other thing I did was I tracked my mileage. So like when I drove to the college twice a week, when I would drive out to baseball stadiums or my arena football team that I covered, like I would always be tracking my mileages because those mileages add up, like 70 cents per mile. So at the end of the year, it could be thousands of dollars in a tax write-off just based off of driving your car. And I think keeping track of the little things, because if you forget to do that, and then 6 months down the line, you're like, where have I driven in the last 6 months and how many miles have I driven? Finding out the best tax deductions. So there are certain people who might like write off their car, but I went more of the mileage route because if you were to ever then sell your car, you have to pay back those tax deductions on your profits of selling your car. So
Oh,
we, looking
interesting.
at the tiny things, yeah, looking at the tiny things of like long term, what's going to be the best benefit? Like for me, I found mileage was rather than writing off like a car or buying a car and writing it off for the business writing off equipment and making sure that I stayed on top of that and my receipts for everything. And so we did only file annually, but you can do quarterly. We did annually just because we kept everything on an Excel sheet. It was all organized and it was easy to do. But I do think for people starting out, if they are new to it and they might not have all of their resources in their back pocket, quarterly is better because you can stay on top of the amount of taxes that you owe. So that at the end of the year, you're not like, holy cow, that's a big chunk of change that I have to now pay in taxes that I wasn't planning on.
And that goes for any work as like a 1099 or an
Yes,
LLC, right? You could do it. I remember
correct.
hearing about that. And that's actually one great thing about working with Luna. We have a partnership built in through Stride Health to be able to track those
Yeah.
expenses too. So anybody working 1099 for us or with their through their LLC with us can utilize that platform too to keep it really organized.
They can even print off a report at the end of the year through Stride Health and like just hand it over to their accountant or do it online. Like it prints off everything for you, so it's really easy to use.
Yeah, I just
Amazing.
want to attest to that. I mean, I use Stride Health since I work as a 1099 through Luna. And like Caitlin, I mean, I'm tracking all my mileage on there. Anything that
Yeah.
could even, be related to my work as a PT, I'm putting it on there to write off. And you can just export that PDF document. And I use TurboTax. So
Oh
I
yeah.
upload that document to TurboTax and it just like calculated everything out for me. I saw like how much I was saving on taxes, super easy to use.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I think part of like when we talk to PTs and they're trying to calculate, like, well, I have to drive to see the patients, so that's time, or I have to do this, plus documentation with us doesn't take hardly any time. Joe can, and Marcy, I'm sure can attest to that, like, 90 seconds or 3 minutes for a daily note. But I think what people forget to calculate in is, yes, you do have that, but at the end of the year, you have all of those write-offs that really, really add up to be a lot of money. So I think that some people, when they're calculating maybe their hourly rate with Luna, they don't take that into consideration as much as they should because it really does equal out in the end.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Caitlin, I wanted to know because I know you have a little one now.
I
So,
do.
what kind of impact did starting your own business have on you and your husband initially? Were you like my husband has his own law firm, and he can get quite stressed. So what kind of impact did
Yes.
it have on family stuff? And then also like how was there maternity leave? What did you do with your patients?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely stress on both of us because you're going from a W-2 position where it's like I get paid a set salary every 2 weeks. I have benefits, I have this and that. Luckily, I was able to like go on my husband's benefits at his work, but it was I will never say that my son was not planned. I always say he was a surprise that turned into a prize because my husband and I weren't necessarily like, we didn't know if we wanted kids or if we were planning on having kids. He's the best thing that's happened to us. So, the universe knew what we needed. But it definitely threw a wrench in the schedule that I was working. I would see athletes before school at like 6 a.m. And then I would get some call me after practice at 6, 7 p.m. and be like, Katlyn, I rolled my ankle. I need to come in. And I'd go see him at 7:30 at night. I'd work weekends, especially football season, Saturday mornings after Friday night lights. A lot of guys need worked on. Um, so I quickly realized like for this phase of life, this might not be exactly what I need. And honestly, that is what led me to Luna. So I kind of thought I would love to still do what I'm doing, have the flexibility to see my patients, but have a little bit more flexibility on my day-to-day, like 9 to 5. And so I just saw a random like LinkedIn email about Luna. I knew about Luna. My roommate from PT school lived in Arizona and worked for them. So, because Luna's not in Kansas, so I can't be a treating clinician with Luna or else I would. But my friend had told me about him, loved working for him, and so I applied for that job when it popped up, and I thought I can still see my people on the side, but I can come and have more flexibility to be with my family. And it's worked out beautifully for the past year. It'll be a year this week that I started with Luna. So it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been the perfect fit for my family. But to what you said, Marcy, like definitely stress related. Like it's one of those things where I had the full support of my husband, which was amazing, but I also felt some weight on my shoulders of I also need to provide for my family because I made this decision. So this needs to work. Because if this fails, I fail, and you kind of have the weight of that. So I think it just pushed me to work a little bit harder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and a great thing for when Luna is available in your specific region, it's like the best of both worlds, right? Like you have all of that flexibility and control of like your own practice, but then you also have the support of a company who's bolstering you, providing patients. You can work when you want and not when you don't. So, like, depending on the phase of life with your family, it's so adjustable too. And I would imagine
Yes.
too,
Yeah.
if anybody with a private practice is not in the heavy athlete population, say they were, on the more geriatric side of things, or, even just working professionals, that possibly weekday stuff could work. But I definitely see in your situation too, those athletes, the young ones, they need it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those you never know when you're going to get a phone call. I had an athlete once call me at midnight after his football game on a Saturday night because he had broken his ankle, and I was like, "Man, I'm in bed right now. Like I can't help you right now. Like you're out of town at a football game and it's midnight, buddy. I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow."
I mean, that just goes to show how much they trusted you, right? That relationship building that you had with those athletes. So that's amazing. I guess, Kayla, I have a question for you. So,
Yeah.
you going through all this and having a really good experience with everything, what kind of advice would you give to people that might even be considering this at all? What
Yeah.
advice would you give people who are on the fence about
Yeah.
it?
I think we're going to see more of them. I think as time goes on and insurance reimbursements decrease, I think that we're going to see more private practices open up with solo clinicians that either want to build up and scale or like me, my plan was I just wanted one location. I didn't have a plan to like scale to be this huge thing. This is just what I wanted to do. Um, I think the big thing is have a game plan. Know that there's going to be low points. You're going to have months where you're like, this is amazing. This is more than I would have ever made being in a regular PT clinic. But you're going to have some slow months where you're like, the phone's just not ringing as much. And just know that those times are going to pass because when you build those relationships and you build that rapport, that word of mouth is going to spread and you're going to keep getting more people just based off of that.
Would you say for anyone that does want to get into working with athletes or sports patients to kind of understand going into it that it's probably not a traditional 9 to 5 type clinic job because those kids or college kids are in school?
Yeah, I think especially even, high school kids, like a lot of parents, they're working, they don't want to take off work to take their kids out of school to then take them to PT. Um, I also have been, deemed sometimes a people pleaser. So I have a hard time saying no when, I know a kid's hurt and they need to be seen, and I'm like, all right, I'll make time for them. But I think when you're in that environment, you do have to know there's going to be some early mornings and late nights that are not a traditional 9 to 5. But owning your own business in general isn't because you're going to be out there marketing. You're always going to be doing stuff on your computer, whether it's documentation, business things, business planning. So people who are looking to do this, I hope that they, realize there's a lot outside of that typical 9 to 5.
What did your documentation look like? So you provided super bills. Was that just of the CPT codes, or did you keep some sort of like soap note looking thing?
So I used a system called PT Everywhere. And it was incredible. It was built by PTs, and they had super bills built in. So I got to have all of my patients on there, my documentation on there. It had a built-in HEP app on my phone, app on the patient's phone. Their parents also could have a login, and then the kids could have a login for their phones or iPads. And so those super bills, right when I started, I didn't have the documentation system. So I just had an Excel sheet that I made that was just my super bill Excel sheet, things that I filled out, and then I would just email it to them. But then once I decided to get my system, then I could just email them or it would go to them in the app, and then they could just send it from there to their insurances. But I know even on Uncaged Clinician, if people ask about documentation, there's one called like Jane. Jane's another good one. There's a lot of documentation out there for private practitioners, cash-based PTs that have a lot of good referrals behind them for sure.
How do you feel about the Google Workspace people? Because I've seen people say that they just use that if they're just doing it on like a
Yep.
very low, like side hustle type deal. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
I mean, I actually have a buddy who he owns a awesome cash-based sports PT clinic up near Kansas City. And it's big. I mean, he works with multiple different colleges, mostly overhead throwing athletes. He's really well known in the area, and he used that for a long time. Because I remember we had lunch a couple times when we were both doing our business stuff, and we'd meet up. And he works as an adjunct professor at where we went to PT school, and he had one of my friends and I come and talk to their business class about that. And we went out to lunch afterwards, and he was like, yeah, like I'm just using the Google stuff for now. And he seemed to be doing real good with it. I think by now he's probably using something different, but he really said it was easy to use at the time. And it's free.
That's true. True.
But hey, tax write-off, right? Any costs
Yeah,
related
yeah.
to any documentation system that you subscribe to, tax write-off. I'm learning more about this as I go,
Oh
all
yeah.
of the different options and getting myself familiar. Again, I'm one of those people who I'm like, I don't know anything about taxes. So yes, this is very enlightening. Any additional tax tidbits that you want to
I
share?
mean, you can write off a lot of your continuing education.
Oh, that's a
So
good
like even if
point.
you're
Yeah.
1099, yeah, 1099 with Luna, let's say you want to get dry needling certified. And I know like my first course dry needling, I think it was like $1,200. Like there's stuff that's not cheap, and that's a tax deduction. If you have an APTA membership, that's a tax deduction. Um, Obviously, your liability insurance, that's a big one. For some of our clinicians that might not want to use their phone to like do the Luna app and that type of thing, you can typically write off like an iPad or something if you use it for the business or for your 1099 job. Your renewals, so our yearly annual PT license renewals, you can write those off. I mean, a long list of things. And I mean, you can find a long list online as well, but you can also kind of get creative with it and find out different things that you can write off as well.
Yeah, that's so many options. I mean, your mind goes to just like the equipment that you would utilize, but that's so true. All of
Yes.
the different certifications, continuing education, that makes so much sense. Well,
My parents
wonderful.
are also both. Well, my mom is a CPA and my dad's an accountant. And so I had their help as well. And so things that I didn't even know that you could do are percentages of your electricity bill and your internet plan and
Yep.
depending on where you kind of, so if like Luna is on your phone, you can write off part of your AT&T phone bill. And if you use internet at
Yep.
home to get the app, it's not a
Yeah, there's
whole, like you can't write the whole thing off. It's only a percentage of it, but there's so
Yeah.
much out there that really does help you save tax savings as well.
Yeah, like you can even, my buddy I was just talking about that has the clinic up near Kansas City. I know like he built on an office to his house and could write off a percentage of his office that he built onto his house because it was for his, he sits there and does a lot of his business stuff there. So there's a certain like square footage of your home you can write off for a home office. And
Home
I mean,
reno
the list
time.
just goes.
Let's do this.
Yeah, yeah. The list goes on and on and on. And so that's, if people are looking into 1099 work, LLCs, opening their own business, just make sure you're using all the resources that you have and getting those because you don't want to leave anything on the table when it comes to those tax write-offs and benefits and things like that.
Wonderful. Well, Katlyn, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so enlightening. I know I certainly learned a lot and just love your perspective as being a small business owner. Everybody out there, let us know what tidbits you have about business ownership. If you have any questions, we'll pass them along to Katlyn too. But yeah, thanks for joining us for another episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to Luna Unscripted.